Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and today we're going to be talking about regulation and mass adoption in crypto, specific to this year, 2021. We are just over about a month into the year, and already adoption seems like it has 10x'd, and for good reasons as well, as we'll find out here in just a minute. But more so and important is regulation seems to be stepping in. This can be good. This also could be detrimental to the industry overall. We've got the SEC now here in the United States starting to talk about regulation along with individual states. So that's at the federal and at the state level, just here in the United States. But globally, we have conversations around regulation and also taxation and how all of this should be put into a framework and handled no matter where you may be in the world. But just like we do on today's show, when we talk about it, we've got a few headlines for you, again, to set context as to what's happening in the industry as so much continues to change, not just minute by minute, but almost half second by half second in this industry. So just this morning, according to CoinDesk, cryptocurrency investment firm Arcane Crypto is now listed on Sweden's NASDAQ First North. Another company going into the public markets. We also had announcements recently that Coinbase would not only list publicly, but also would be listing on the NASDAQ here in the United States. We're starting to see more of this around companies in the cryptocurrency space as a trend here in 2021. We also have more ETF and more funds for those to invest in the public markets. But including adoption, PayPal announced just yesterday their first quarter earnings, and their first quarter update for 2021, that in the end of 2020, the last 3 months of 2020, as the company opened up the ability to buy cryptocurrencies, they gained 16 million new active accounts and handled almost $300 billion in total payment values. They also found customers who purchase crypto through the platform end up logging into PayPal twice as more than they were before. So again, seeing that mass adoption starting to tick up. Well, even more so, they had more to say. Venmo, they mentioned, would be soon having, Venmo users would soon be having the ability to buy, hold, and sell cryptocurrencies inside the app by, guess what? Q2. That's only about a month and a half away, that Venmo users. So this is now opening up and playing into PayPal's plan of rolling out the ability to have digital currencies, whether it's buy, sell, hold, to their 350 million customers. Last but not least, Visa. Visa also announced that after partnering with over 35 firms, both in the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency space, that they will be rolling out a suite of products for banks to start adopting cryptocurrencies, buying, selling, trading, and purchasing as well. So a huge push again in the industry. Last but not least, decentralized finance. We talked about this earlier in the week. DeFi, total locked value, TLV. We just crossed over 30 billion earlier in the week. Today, we are surpassing 35 billion and growing. And again, total locked value showing the further adoption of what's happening in the space around decentralized finance and the space as a whole. But so much more to talk about. I'm going to pause there. Those are the headlines, a little bit of context for today's discussion for you, our audience tuning in. If you're liking what you hear, click subscribe, share, and also check out our archive on LATOKEN.com to hear more about today's subject and from today's speakers as well, along with the entire VCTV family. And if you would like to be an investor to share your thoughts and insights around today's topic and others, or as an entrepreneur to share your company, product, or service, do reach out to the team and or myself. We'll find that right spot for you. Speaking of team, a big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day, including today. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, also joined by my co-host, a part of the LATOKEN team here, Maxim. And today we've got an outstanding cast of investors who will be sharing their thoughts again with us today as well. So first and foremost, Greg, welcome back to the show. A little intro and a little background.
Thanks for having me again. I'm Greg Kidd. I'm the CEO of Global ID, which seeks to create portable identity so many of these new digital innovations can be done in a compliant and risk-appropriate way. Also have an investment firm, Hard Yakka. We were first money in at Coinbase and are investors in ventures like Filecoin, Solana, and other folks in the crypto space. Thanks for having me back.
Wonderful, Greg. Thank you for joining us again, and excited to talk a little bit more about, again, how identity plays a role into the future of regulation, and more importantly, how it will play this year as it's a continuing rising topic in the space as well. Next up, a special guest who's joined us and a longtime friend of the family here at VCTV, crypto superwoman herself, Irina Litchfield. Welcome back to the show. A little intro and a little background for everybody.
Thank you, Kyle. It's such a pleasure to be back. You know, I love you guys. The world is picking up and things are moving very fast. So I'm getting very, very busy, which is good. Crypto Superwoman, many know me by this name. I'm founder of Blockchain Cubed, Lumeria, and I advise, for the most part, finance industry companies. And a space, of course.
And space. How could anyone forget space? And by the way, in terms of space, she's talking about the Space Fund. Also, we've had Megan Crawford, one of the founders of Space Fund, here on VCTV. Check out a fireside chat she and I did, along with one Irina and I did, talking about going beyond the stars and where the investment opportunities lie in that space as well. Welcome back, Irina. And then also, David, welcome back to the show. A little intro, a little background.
Thank you, Kyle. So my name is David Towell. I'm a co-founder and president of ProChain Capital. ProChain Capital is a multi-asset, multi-strategy, crypto asset-focused fund. To unpack that just for a second, and I think it's really important relative to this conversation, we invest in the entire crypto and digital currency space, but not only in tokens, not only in coins, but also in stocks and bonds of companies that are involved in digital payments. For instance, a few that you had mentioned, Kyle, even at the outset, we're involved in PayPal and Square, been involved in Visa, number of financial institutions that are focusing on the space. And then we're also invested in some venture firms as well. So to us, the fundamentals of this incredibly quickly moving and burgeoning asset class is what's important. We're not really technically minded about whether it's couched in a coin or couched in a corporation that its interests trade in common stock on stock markets, or it's private investment. We're focused on the fundamentals of this entire industry, and that's really, really important for where we see the value and how we expect to go ahead and profit for our investors. The only other thing that I would say is I'm a long-time investment manager. So I've been involved with regulatory issues my entire career. In fact, I am a trained and practiced lawyer, and I have served as an expert witness in some securities regulation cases. So regulatory issues are germane to my professional being from the very beginning. And so therefore, I'm quite sensitive to them as they relate to crypto, and also have some thoughts from some other areas of regulatory activity to go ahead and use them to opine on the regulation of crypto assets.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, everybody, and welcome back. Very excited to have each and every one of you as well. And like I said, we're less than 40 days into the new year already, which it doesn't feel that way. It feels like it's already been 6 months, but nonetheless, in terms of regulation, there's been a ton of conversation around this. There was a lot at the very, very, very end of 2020 that this may be a huge year, being 2021, around regulation, not just the discussion, but also the implementation of said regulations around the space. And so, David, kick us off as to what's happening when it comes to regulation here in 2021 around digital currencies and crypto as well.
So I think there's two trends to kind of generally keep in mind. First is the trend by regulatory bodies, both in the United States and around the world, to go ahead and be first and to be active versus passive. And so to be active and also to be a first actor, you usually have to be pretty forward thinking and you usually have to be pretty nimble. And so we saw very early on that a lot of, I would say, kind of smaller jurisdictions, whether they be states in the United States or whether they be countries around the world, identified the opportunity and said, we immediately want to be the epicenter, the go-to, for crypto assets. And we want to lead the way. We want to be pioneers when it comes to regulatory parameters. Certainly, that will begin. So, as an example, let's say, not having to do with crypto, let's talk about the hedge fund industry. Offshore hedge funds are generally in places like the Cayman Islands or Jersey or, those types of jurisdictions where they acted quickly. It made sense from a tax perspective. Lots of foreign investors are happy investing there and so on and so forth. And I think similar types of ideas have been going on in the United States. We know that Wyoming, tried to get out in front of lots of regulatory related activity. And then the second thing is, and this is, I would say, possibly more important, is the private side of this business, the actual money makers, forcing the regulatory activity. So if you've got large multinational companies, financial institutions that are demanding regulatory framework so that they can go ahead and give their customers, their clients, access to crypto assets because they're clamoring for it, those financial institutions can have the ability to bear down on regulatory bodies to go ahead and set those regulatory parameters. In fact, they can go ahead and draft them for them or work with them to go ahead and create them. And just one specific issue, before the year is out, we must have in the United States a Bitcoin ETF. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We need it. People want it. It's got to happen. And there should be more than one of them. And, starting with Bitcoin, and then it should go to other tokens as well. The U.S. should not be lagging around the world when it comes to these types of investment vehicles.
That's a good point. And thank you, David. I know we've had a number of conversations around the ETF space for the public markets. Again, just for those that are listening, there's Grayscale who has launched a number of not just Bitcoin, Ethereum, but also has opened up the books and looks like they're going to be trying to open maybe 5 or 6. I think it's 5, if I'm correct, new ETFs as well this year surrounding different currencies. But nonetheless, there's so much more to be had in that space. So thank you, David, on that. And Greg, coming to you next, regulation, anything to add on to David's point? But then again, from your view, where are we in terms of regulation for 2021 around digital currencies?
Well, I think David's point is really spot on. It's really about clarity. I'm on the sort of the receiving end, having been the chief risk officer at Ripple and the SEC action, but at least there's relief that the regulators are speaking. And we do believe that we're going to have a regime. It's absolutely true. We might end up this year with more people holding crypto or Bitcoin than gold, and there's really no way to move forward. These data points you're giving about Visa, PayPal, various funds, it absolutely demands clarity. And it's better to even have sometimes a bad regulation, which can be fixed, than no regulation. Clarity is the lubricant that really is going to bring this into the mainstream. So I'm really excited about 2021. I haven't seen anything like this before in terms of momentum.
I couldn't agree. I mean, in terms of momentum, speed is just incredible. I mean, we're less than 40 days into the year, and it feels like we've progressed 6 months from a technology and infrastructure standpoint, let alone to these types of conversations around regulation. Again, good, bad, or ugly. We're still waiting to figure out how that may lie, but nonetheless, it's happening. Wyoming, Irina is going to tell us a little bit about maybe Puerto Rico, and all along with Texas, there's a ton of activity in that area. I was reading yesterday that from a tax perspective, there's only a few countries, Okay, that's a small number of the many countries we have in the world. A few countries that even have an idea of first steps for a framework around taxation on staking, and how to even look at the staking side of what we're talking about. So there's so much more to be had, and I think you're right. We're just getting started. And Irina, coming over to you, I mean, anything to add on to David and Greg's point, but even more so your view on regulation in the industry?
Yes, first of all, I love clarity is a lubricant. I'm going to borrow that. And I'll quote you. So that's that's that. I think that coming back to clarity, when we say crypto, we must identify cryptocurrencies and technology. And so the good thing that I'm seeing happening is that regulators are finally understanding that the technology, distributed ledger technology itself, is highly beneficial, and it is not a cryptocurrency. And so we're seeing a lot of interesting movement in kind of regulating the technology stack and allowing, for example, settlement, be used for global for transfer of securities, right? So a settlement layer on a distributed ledger is unbelievable. I mean, this is something that we've been really dreaming forward to, and it's now a reality. As far as the global landscape is happening, there's a huge push right now in actually doing exactly that and allowing kind of a blockchain technology come in and integrate into a traditional finance. And so I think that that's kind of like the biggest thing that excites me. And of course, there's the cryptocurrencies and understanding understanding that better. But it is the technology or technology layer to me that is, and allowing the technology layer be implemented and understand it and regulated, I think is the biggest push that we're going to see, that I believe will separate speculatory markets of cryptocurrencies from actual evaluation of a blockchain technologies.
Yeah, and speaking of that technology, so let's go one level deeper. So going at mass adoption. I mean, again, PayPal rolls this out from a technology integration standpoint. Now that that's moved from PayPal proper into Venmo, so now, again, we'll just use their numbers, 350 million people all of a sudden have a digital wallet, and not just a digital wallet in the sense of what we've talked about, digital currencies, but the whole side. They can do P2P, so payment to payment transfers instantly. They can now buy, sell crypto and digital currencies. There's also integration of Honey, so that we'll have some e-commerce aspect that will be put into that. Again, we're seeing this growth around Visa and Lightning Zap as well, making some huge huge drive, into the payment side of this. So being able to get people paid and payroll on a more minute by minute, second by second, as they showed in their demo, or on a daily basis. Irina, back to you. I mean, this sounds like the technology is starting to push us towards a greater mass adoption. Would you agree?
Yes, 100%. And again, everything that you described is implementation into traditional finance, right? So what excites me is that we're finally allowing implementation of distributed ledger on kind of a technical aspects of the way we do finance, the way we transfer securities, for example. And so to me, the wonderful day is going to come when users will not know that there is actually distributed ledger technology that's an underlying tech that allows us to make faster transfers, allow us to for better liquidity. And I'm talking about, again, the thing that I'm passionate about, which is global capital markets, right? I think that we're at the point where we're going to see amazing changes, and it's all going to happen on the back end. And so to me, that core infrastructure design that finally regulators allowing us to come in and implement is going to change the way we live. And I do believe that that will lead to democratization of opportunities and investments for people around the world. Because while in US and other privileged countries, it is cryptocurrency is an interesting speculatory, subject, and in the bull run, we all love it. And, not in the bull run, we're not so exciting and sexy, if you would. We've all been through several cycles of these things. And so now we're very well loved and respected. But I think that overall, there are a lot of people in the world that actually need this to be able to elevate themselves from the poverty. And that's what to me, the single source of truth technology is. And I think that one of the most important things, again, is for us this year, concentrating exactly on that, on the implementation. And luckily, regulators now are not scared about us. They don't think that we are going to, they understand the technology. And I mean, it's cash is now the evil kind of right. So a lot of countries have to eliminate cash, because as soon as everybody has a digital wallet, especially that it's centralized, those centralized systems will have control of all the information, as well as control of your holdings. So, but that goes into the decentralization and all those aspects that we don't need to talk about today.
Well, and it's a step-by-step process. And I mean, you mentioned kind of that merger of the two, right? Traditional and decentralized finances are coming together. And we just got the headline again from CoinDesk that Seattle-based Protego, if I may be misstating that, a trust bank has received conditional approval for a trust charter from the OCC here in the United States to custody digital assets. So yet another step in towards that mass adoption. This is not the first time that we've seen an announcement like this. We're starting to see more of these charters get implemented, such that individual or companies can move into that space. And as Arena mentioned, this is the merger or the intersection of traditional and decentralized. Greg, anything to add on to Arena's point around mass adoption and how technology is starting to play a role in really pushing this forward more than ever? And I know you do a lot at Global ID, so maybe pulling some of that in as well.
Well, it's just, I mean, I don't know how to say it any better, but like it used to be gold was the go-to, currency as sort of a risk averse type thing. Originally, people that were buying Bitcoin were sort of risk takers. We have a whole bunch of people now piling in, not just to take risk, but to avoid risk. Like it's very hard to understand as a defensive investment why you wouldn't have crypto, including Bitcoin, in your portfolio. You now have to explain that it's a risk to not have crypto. It used to be you had to explain why you were going to take the risk. And so it is a bit of a FOMA situation, but now it's playing out on a broad scale with PayPal and Visa in the market. And I mean, there's never really been an asset class like this before, which is a tremendous defensive investment. I'm interested in it from a payments point of view. And so seeing Visa in the market and this concept of direct clearing and settlement is really transformational. Once you have payors and payees willing to settle in crypto, either on or off chain, you basically have created the third rail. And I mean the third rail in the good way. There's the banking rails, there's the card rails, but now you have the crypto rails. And this turns the whole world into an on-us game. It means everybody has a seat at the table. The game is not about walking between the window at the casino and the table. The game is at the game, and we all now have a seat at the table. That's what 2021 is about. And hey, look, the regulator, they're the dealer. They're sitting at the table. And the key thing now is at the table.
I love it. I could see Arena enjoying the analogy as well. Thank you, Greg. David, same question to you. Anything to add on to Arena and Greg's points? And then also similar question to you and as well.
So I would like to make an emphatic, boring, but very valuable point. And it's only about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the most boring thing in the crypto space. It's like a been there, done that for anybody who is a forward thinker in the space. And I respect innovation, and I respect the drive to do so many more things with the technology. But from a value creation standpoint, and my investors pay me for one thing only, and that is to make as much risk-adjusted gains as possible on their invested capital. To me, Bitcoin is the most bright asset that may be out there, period, bar none, from a risk-adjusted standpoint. So let's just go first to reiterate the point that Greg just made, which is it's a growth asset, but yet a safe haven asset all at once, which does not, there is no such thing like that. That's an oxymoron in the investing world. The second part of it is this: there is no initiative that is being talked about, whether it be with respect to regulatory activity, whether it be with respect to investing activity, that does not first and foremost include Bitcoin. All other coins follow Bitcoin. And then the last thing is, and it may be the most exciting in terms of growth, is again the point that Kyle made, Greg made, Irina made about payments. We've all thought, or at least I have, I'm in Bitcoin for store of value. It's the most widely held. It's going to be more widely held. That alone is going to drive up the price. We have always been under the presumption that, frankly, there's a better coin out there for transactional activity. But if PayPal, Square, Visa are now going to go ahead and use Bitcoin as the model for transfer of value, it's a game over. Bitcoin is far and away the best asset there is on a risk-adjusted basis. And again, it might be a boring point, but frankly, if I'm boring and I'm making money for my investors, there's nothing better than that.
Nothing to argue there. You grab your cup of coffee, you drink it, and you enjoy it. I can't disagree with you. And thank you, David. Maxim, I want to come to you, welcoming you in as a co-host today. It's a pleasure to have you joining us from the team here at LATOKEN. I know you have a question for the panel as well. You want to go ahead and ask it?
Yes, thank you, Kyle. Having some questions that came into my mind. So about the news of the Visa that was highlighted today several times. So we know that they are focusing on the crypto payments, but if we say about the key investors, if we say about the key market makers, so by your view, what will be they will be expanding their strategy, who it will be, and how they will enter into the market? It's a question for you, David. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I want to make sure I understand the question.
Yeah.
Kyle, would you like to repeat the question for me?
No.
Yes.
In a nutshell. So what the key industries and market makers will be also using the same strategy of expanding like a Visa?
So who I'm saying, who are you referring to as an example as a key market maker?
Okay, market makers. It means it's a key players like a Visa on the payment market.
Let me see. Let me see if I can.
Go ahead. Sorry. Kyle.
Yeah, no. I was just gonna add in there. I think a few examples. Someone like Union Pay, someone like Amex, these major credit-based companies.
Yep.
JP Morgan, we know, has made huge inroads in Singapore and other markets around the world. So those similar to Visa on an international scale, outside of just the U.S. Even though Visa and MasterCard, I believe, are the two biggest globally as well. But outside of that, how do you see those maybe taking a step towards this? Just as a note, Amex made their first public, there's my air quotes, public investment in the space just a few weeks ago. And so seeing like they're a little bit slow or a little bit behind in the space. So I think that's maybe a little bit more context for you, David.
So let me draw the analogy to electric vehicles, okay, which is a huge CapEx requirement in order to get into the business. I think it is much lower cost. The barrier to entry in this is much, much lower. What is, however, much more difficult is to gain the users, right? Is to go ahead and gain, the actual, end user, the customer. Mm-hmm. So what I think is going to happen, as happens with many, technology driven investments, is there will be a lot of really smart people that Irina probably knows very well, who are going to go ahead and get into this in very, very smart ways and disrupt things in ways that I can't imagine. But at some point, someone at JP Morgan is going to say, we might as well just buy these guys instead of going ahead and trying to invent our own mousetrap. We can buy this thing and essentially with a little bit of money and a little bit of, I don't know, turbocharge behind it, spread it around the world really quickly. And so that's what I think is going to happen. There's going to be a bunch of upstarts. There's going to be a bunch of, really aggressive, really thoughtful, really exciting ventures that will probably eventually be consolidated into bigger players. Those bigger players will do both. They'll be home growing their own initiatives and at the same time being mindful of the fact that maybe it just pays to go ahead and buy something else up. And then in terms of, distribution to the world, this goes back to an earlier point. You could distribute it in the United States, but, frankly, this is not something that the United States desperately needs, right? We function pretty good on the plumbing that we have right now. Our financial system, yes, is slower than it could be, but at the end of the day, it's good, and people are going to be.
Whoop.
Oh, David, we lost your audio there. I'm not sure
Sorry.
if something. Oh, there you. Okay.
Okay.
You're back. Yeah.
So I'm sorry. So the not only are people going to be thoughtful about, well, is there risk here, and we're going to have to go ahead and evaluate, and so on and so forth, in those emerging countries which have populations that are more than healthy for these initiatives, they desperately need this type of infrastructure. And so I think a lot of financial institutions are going to go ahead and roll them out there. Eventually, they'll make it here. We'll make it better at some point. I don't know, but certainly, I think the rollout's going to be fierce. It's going to be fast. It'll start fragmented, and then it'll eventually consolidate.
Agreed. We're already starting to see that. And we've already got M&A activity on a wild spree in less than 40 days here into 2021. Maxim, do you have another question for maybe Greg or for Arena?
Yes, also one question. So if you bear in mind that it's extremely volatile situation on crypto market, what will be the main obstacles on a corporate level between organizations in this year?
So Arena, maybe we'll start with you in terms of biggest obstacles for corporates, and then also just in general for mass adoption this year in 2021, some of the biggest obstacles or challenges the industry will face.
Well, I think that it really depends on where we land with the all-time high, the final all-time high before we go into our, not a growth cycle for Bitcoin. And I think so that obviously, if that happens, if we go to wherever we go this year and then we start deflating, I think that, maybe this year that will become a problem. Though I don't think this year, I think next year we'll see a lot of problems with seeing, treasuries going down in numbers. And again, that goes with my thesis, where we're going to see a basically separation of distributed ledger technology valuation companies and cryptocurrency valuation. So I think that that's where we'll see the spread. And, I think a lot of companies will need to identify what's going on there. And I do believe that some treasury mismanagement is going to happen very soon, because one of the bigger problems that we see time after time again is that when new whales come in, and that's what we're seeing. We see a huge whales, just traditional whales rolling in and buying up and doing what they're doing, but they're not hiring experts from the crypto industry to advise them on how to deal with this new asset. They kind of have established understanding to where, don't worry about it, I got it, right? And we all have seen that number of times, every single time. And so a major treasury mismanagement will happen, and I think that's going to be a huge pool for a lot of corporations. So I'm kind of looking at cryptocurrency, not adoption of blockchain technology. So I do think that now we clearly understand and we clearly clarified what is the distributed ledger technology is. And so corporations are now actively coming in and they're building, they're building in the protocols, and might that be, permissioned blockchains or permissionless blockchains, depending on which industry. But the biggest hiccup and how we see everything happen will happen when something either gets hacked in a big way, or worst of all, okay, because that only is blamed to stupidity, then somebody really screws up a big time and poof, right? And I promise we will see that, because it's just inevitable.
Agreed. Greg, anything to add? Thank you, Irina.
Well, one thing that's changed in the world from maybe some time ago is it doesn't matter whether you're a European government, American government, conservative, liberal, all those governments and many other in the world seem to have the printing press on. And so governments all around the world are not showing much fiscal discipline. And it doesn't matter whether you're a conservative, liberal, it's across the board. And so there's just two camps. There's governments, which are loose, and then there's crypto, which is tight. And so with that, any corporate treasury, yes, there's going to be volatility and whatnot, but it's really hard. For instance, if you're a treasury operation and you walk in and you say, we'd like to short Bitcoin. Like, okay, now with these mass movements now, like with GameStop and whatnot, that is like, it's like the old saying, no one ever lost their job buying IBM. And that would be like saying, nobody ever lost their job shorting Bitcoin. Oh, yes, they did. And yes, you will. And so it's really hard to be in corporate treasury and be on the short side of Bitcoin. And short could even just be meaning not going to the party, because then you kind of have to explain like why you missed out. And so it's kind of like that reverse of the IBM saying. And so it's just that defensive asset. And normally that would have been gold or the US dollar, but my gosh, something else has inserted itself into our life that's a better defensive asset, even though it's highly volatile. And this now is a reality, both as a personal investor as well as corporate treasury, on top of the fact that it actually has utility, and potentially more utility than gold. People are always like, well, gold is a defensive investment, but you can make it into jewelry and it has some, but Bitcoin now, because with side chains and whatnot, it can be in payments, it's checking the boxes. And especially at a time in history when governments have shown that they're unlikely to have fiscal discipline.
Well, and also are still a little undecided on policy. I mean, we've got a huge discussion going on around India right now of whether to ban it, not ban it. Again, when it comes to Bitcoin, but all cryptocurrency in general, which could be very detrimental to the company's future if what the picture we're painting right now comes true. They could be one of a few countries that may miss that boat in terms of where the future is going. But again, still TBD, as you said, a lot of back and forth trying to figure this all out, as Irina and David have also mentioned. There's a lot of questions. This is all moving very fast. And it's also something very new for many as well, and trying to figure out how all that's going to fit. And more importantly, Greg, I mean, you painted a very simple picture of the payment rails. And the three that we have and this third that's coming that will open up the entire world on a scale that no one has thought of. And maybe it was once before only science fiction. And now it's going to be here, or it could be here. I'll say that there's an asterisk. It could be here, but it looks like it is. And so I think this is a very big inflection point. I think to summarize everybody's points here, this is the inflection point. Can we figure this all out? Or are there a few that do and many that don't, and vice versa, to see where we go? And, David, I want to come to you on this. I mean, looking at 2021, you got 11 months ahead of you. Where are you placing your bets in terms of the areas of opportunity for people to start building in here in 2021 that will set that stage even further, looking at the decade in front of us?
Well, I made the case for Bitcoin a little earlier, but to go ahead and take maybe a little bit of vol off of that investment, investing in the likes of Square, PayPal, Visa, which have other businesses, other activities, other revenue generating, missions, that's also a good way to be in the space, but not yet, not fully exposed to the space. Certainly not also, exposed potentially to nefarious activity and so on that may be associated with Bitcoin. And also, go back to Greg's point, the democratization of investors and everything that happened in recent days regarding heavily shorted stocks and that type of volatility. So on the long side, that's where I will position our fund. In addition, on the venture side, I think it's important to be there in some respect. I mean, we have a very minority portion of our portfolio there, but it's important to go ahead and see the initiatives that people are up to using blockchain technology. There are a lot of people chasing the same exact goals, and it's really hard to go ahead and put a really firm bet on which outfit is going to be the one to succeed, and not only succeed technologically, but also succeed in terms of adoption and eventually making money. But it's important to be there to understand how the ecosystem is evolving, because eventually those companies will be publicly traded companies, will have tokens that are issued, so on and so forth. So we're there as well. So again, sum up, big piece in Bitcoin, some diversification, some of liquid equities, and then small portion in startup and seed funding.
Thank you, David. In public may also have a change in definition, right? Today we refer to the public markets in a very specific way. As digital currencies start to open up and things like also NFTs play a role in the gaming space and the arts and collectibles space. Now the public markets are truly what you see out there, that anybody can be a part of the public markets, or they can be a part of the market in general, as marketplaces start to exist in many different forms. So
Absolutely.
Great point. Thank you, David. Irina, to you, same question. Where are you placing your bets this year?
I love Bitcoin. I just love Bitcoin. And, to me, all we do is just to make more Bitcoin, right? So, that's that. As far as cryptocurrency, but, that's just one aspect. To me, this is a really busy year for implementation of distributed ledgers. So Corda is doing a great job, and Dazzle provides amazing service. And now this is not a cryptocurrency, this is a technology. And so they're actually, they're a really great company for implementing into traditional finance as far as the securities and settlement layer. So I'm really bullish on what they're doing. I support them very highly, and I really love how their distributed ledger technology, not a blockchain. Remember, distributed ledger technology is not a blockchain, but blockchain is a distributed ledger technology, and we always have to make sure that we're clear on that, because the blockchain, it's not all about blocks and chains. But all that, and of course, one of the things that I'm really driven by is supporting those that are truly decentralized, right? As we are seeing huge push toward centralization, I do want to make sure that those that for example, Digibyte. So I'm a huge supporter of Digibyte, only because they're there and they've been around for a while, and it is actually it is a truly decentralized platform that has a founder who doesn't have a say-so and all of that, and and I think that that's very important. And of course, Bitcoin, the more people coming into Bitcoin, the more we can ensure that we can always anchor into a single source of truth to make sure that we keep that integrity. And for us, in order to evolve and in order to counterbalance the move towards centralization, the move away from cash and the freedom, because remember too is that, Bitcoin can be traced, and it can be, government can't turn the switch and make it go away, and find you and get you. Now, this is not a reality anymore. This is Irina 2013, all that, or being scared whether it's going to be legal, illegal. It's legal, and it's not going to become illegal. I don't think so. But but we need to have that balance. And so I think that the core of that, which is immutable information, is the most important. And to me, that's what Bitcoin is. And we must concentrate on that. And when the growth cycle starts deflating, people will need to keep in mind that, and we will have to remind them that it's kind of like your fiduciary responsibility to, to hold on to it, to allow that anchoring.
Agreed. Thank you, Irina. And Greg, same question to you. Where are you placing your bets over the next year?
Well, I've always got a piece of Bitcoin, but we're always looking to hopefully bet on the next thing. I remember I was at Y Combinator and there was this guy sitting around and he didn't have anybody on his team. And I said, well, where's your team? He says, I don't have one. And I'm like, well, that's kind of sad. He says, yeah, I just have this white paper. And his name was Juan. And his white paper was, it's this concept called proof of stake. And this was Filecoin. And so this concept of a distributed Dropbox. And I'm like, well, it's like the Benny Hill show. I'd buy that for $1. So I made an investment. And so making investments in those next things, the concept of proof of stake, distributed data storage, proof of time, proof of history. These are more efficient models of the blockchain. That's Solana. I'm interested in tokenization through Uphold. Things like the Universal Protocol wraps gold. It's now wrapping carbon credits. Okay. Mm-hmm. So we do have a bit of a problem. Bitcoin is very dirty. So what's the flip side of that? Well, make a carbon neutral form of Bitcoin, or else tokenize carbon credits. And so the blockchain technology, yes, Bitcoin sort of showed us the way, but there are these other opportunities out there. And so I'm playing more on the fringe because, that's where I like. I want to find the next person who wrote that white paper on what, proof of stake is all about. And now we're seeing that coming in. So I'm going to have a lot of dry holes, but I probably have a higher risk tolerance because I don't know. To me, all my mistakes, we call that learning. And so I want to do a lot of learning. And so I'm okay with 7 out of 10 failures. 2 out of 10 kind of go sideways, and maybe 1 out of 10 actually does something. And that's the risk space that I'm in. So it's a bit different from other folks.
No, it's great. Thank you, Greg. And as we come to closing thoughts and where you can be found online, David, let me start back with you. Any closing thoughts to leave our audience with around regulation and mass adoption here in 2021? And then, of course, where you can be found online. Oh, David, it looks like we had a sound technical issue.
Sorry.
There you go.
I silenced myself. I don't have anything else to add. I think this was really a comprehensive discussion, and I really enjoyed it. And certainly, props to my co-panelists and to you as well, Kyle, and Maxim. And I can be found at david@prochaincap.com. It's david@prochaincap.com. And I thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Irina, same question to you. Closing thoughts, and where can you be found online as well?
Closing thoughts is it's exciting and things are happening even better than we were anticipating. So buckle up. It's going to be a fast and exciting ride. And just remember, do the right thing. And I know that our co-panelists and everybody is doing the right thing. And I want to encourage viewers to also make sure that also remember that there are risks associated with this, right? And so don't make stupid movements and sell your houses to buy Bitcoin. Don't be the person on the news. It's a little bit darker, but we have to remember about this. People lose their minds during growth cycle and do stupid things. So don't do stupid things. And remember, decentralization right now is kind of one of the bigger anchors that we need to counterbalance centralization. And find me on Twitter at Irina Litchfield, or just Google Crypto Superwoman, and it will give you links to everything where you can find me. And I respond if you give me the contents of what you actually want from me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Irina. Greg, close us out. Closing thoughts, and then also where can you be found online as well?
Well, first, to find me online, just twitter.com/GregKidd is my Twitter feed. In this new world that we're going to, I hope it's bottom up rather than top down. Like, It's going to be no fun if we have all this new technology and it's just a new set of big governments and big corporations that make us ants, even if we have decentralized crypto. So find ways, part of the reason I'm working on Global ID, where you can be in charge of your identity. It's portable and you're the boss across all these new opportunities, all these new countries. That the good part of this technology is if it's democratizing and it increases access. Yes, we're all talking about like making money, but the really exciting transformational here is really a shift in governance from power that's top down that turns us into ants, that's power that comes bottom up. And that's the really exciting thing here. Yes, we might make a buck or two along the way. Thank you much.
Wonderful. Greg, David, Arena, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and insights with us today and the audience. Also, thank you, audience, for tuning in. If you like what you heard, click subscribe, share. Make sure you check out the archive on LATOKEN.com to hear more from Greg, Daniel, and Arena on a number of different topics, including today, along with the entire VCTV family of speakers who join us from all around the world to share their thoughts and insights on different technologies, industries, and those regions that they come from as well. And if you'd like to be on a show like today as an investor or as an entrepreneur to share your thoughts and insights or your company product or service, do reach out to the team and or myself, and we'll find that right spot for you. Speaking of team, a big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. A big thank you as well and welcoming to my co-host Maxim from the LATOKEN team. Pleasure to have you. Super excited to see you on more shows. It's going to be awesome. So definitely check out everybody Maxim on LATOKEN.com and upcoming shows that we have more for you here in the coming weeks. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me everywhere online at Kyle Ellicott, along with all of our guests, including Maxim, on all social media networks. And remember, when you do reach out, please do add context, as Arena mentioned, where you heard us, where you saw us, and what you would like to continue the conversation about. With that, we'll be back here next week with more VCTV. Everyone have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.